Okay, so um, since we are so close to field day, we're actually 30 days out. Well, 29, I guess. It's June 24th. So it's just right around the corner. And many of you know that field day happens once a year in the summer, fourth weekend in June. For all the newbies, if there are any out there listening, it's a big deal for ham radio, uh, mostly for the United States, although Canada does participate, and I believe Mexico also does participate also, but maybe not as much. It's not to say that DX stations cannot participate, because they can, but it's primarily a US centric event. And the idea is that you get a bunch of folks together, get their equipment, you go out and set up maybe at a park, maybe at somewhere in the national forest, or someplace outside of your normal station, and put everything together, and then try to make contacts with groups all over the country and try to make as many contacts as possible. Well, there's a whole bunch of different aspects to it. Um, the whole the whole idea of setting up at a park so that people can come and see people that are unlicensed, or maybe they've been licensed for a while but they're inactive, and they just want to you want to be in a accessible location so that people can just stop by and see what's going on, come and check it out, get on the air, maybe get them interested in ham radio and teach them something about the hobby. So field day has been around for a long time, almost since the inception of the ARRL, way back in 1933. Now, there's been times, of course, when we haven't had field day, like during World War II. All radio stations were shut down. So, at least all amateur radio stations, with the exception of races. But I'm not even sure how much activity they had during WW2. Um, it's one of the largest events that or activities uh, across the country, at least within the US. Almost every club goes out and participates in field day in some manner, even if it's just one transmitter. A lot of clubs will put up several transmitters, several antennas. They figure there's roughly 30,000 operators across the country that put stations together. Now, it's not just 30,000 people. It's probably more like 30,000 groups of people. So there's many more people than what they list there. Especially if you count all the visitors that come by to see what's going on. And so the ARRL, of course, they want to have some way of sort of tracking, how effective was the exercise. And so they give us information to pass along to the other stations. Usually it's the number of transmitters, the station class, which we'll talk about later, and then which section of the ARRL, or the Radio Amateur Association of Canada, what their section number is, or their section name. Here in Arizona is a section all by itself. So we usually send our state Alpha Zulu. It's generally a 24-hour period that all the stations operate for. However, a few years ago, they added in an additional 3 hours. But I don't think very many people actually use those additional 3 hours, because almost everybody takes at least 24 hours to set up, and they don't meet the criteria in order to get those extra 3 hours. And if you do meet the criteria, there's almost nobody left on the band to talk to, because when it ends, it's gone. It's like you turned off a switch. There's no more RF. And so there's lots of different ways the contacts, each contact is worth a different amount of points. And depending on which mode, it's worth a different amount of points. There's lots of ways to get points. You can get them other ways than making contacts. And so the ARRL has tried to incentivize people to do things like bring out a satellite station, make satellite contacts, uh, use unusual modes. So maybe it's not so unusual today because in 2017, I think it was, is when the first FT8 contacts were started. Now a lot of people actually use it. A lot of people. It's, in my opinion, it's become the de facto CW mode because you don't have to learn it. You just have to click a mouse and you get the same sensitivity. You can hear very weak signals. You can actually make contact. And it's 2 points, just like CW. Phone contacts are only 1 point. So you don't have to have somebody that's a specialist in high speed CW to make a lot of points. You can get on FT8 or FT4 and you can do the exact same thing. Maybe a little slower, maybe a little faster, depending on who's operating, but you can do the same thing. So as I said, it's primarily a region 2 type of event. So it's primarily the United States and Canada get involved. And we're the only two ham or groups of hams, but exclude the Egg McMuffins out there; those hams don't count. and DX is allowed. They can come and work as many stations as they like. Their section would be DX for long distance contact. But as I said, it's primarily a US centric thing. You can use any of the ham bands except what people used to call the work bands. Now, 60 meters wasn't a work band, but 12 meters, 17, and 30 meters, they're very narrow in their bandwidth. I mean, they're only 12 meters and 17 meters are only 100 kilohertz wide, and 30 meters is only 50 kilohertz wide, or is it 150? Anyway, it's small compared to the other bands. And so people have excluded those from contesting and that sort of thing. And so they're excluded for field day also. And well, 60 meters is channelized. So we have 5 channels that we can operate on. And so we just automatically exclude it also. Field day is 24 hours on one day. So June 24th, starting at 11 a.m. Saturday here in Arizona, and runs until 11 a.m. the next morning. And like I said, if you were qualified for those extra 3 hours, those 3 hours are tacked on at the end, and everybody's gone at 11 o'clock. The band goes dead. Propagation may be there, but there's nobody to talk to. so it's kind of a mute point. Yeah, everybody's taking apart the station, packing up so they can eat lunch and recover and make it back home. So there's really just some very basic rules. There's lots of rules. If you go on the ARRL website, there's a ton of rules. There's like a 20-some page book. But in some of the basic rules are if you operate Class A, which is emergency power, you get to operate a free, so a secondary station on 50 megahertz or above. So those you can have 2 stations, but you can have one that counts. So you'd have a one transmitter running emergency power, so batteries or generator, and then the state, in our case, Arizona for the section. And you can make as many contacts as you want on 50 megahertz. It's a free station. Hopefully the band is open. If not, you can make contacts on 2 meters with whoever you can see. excluding repeaters. No repeaters allowed in field day. You can talk to your buddies, but you can't count those contacts. You can pass message traffic. You can send, in fact, we'll get to that piece. Um, I mentioned a little earlier that CW and digital, well, they've made them basically equivalent as far as points. So if you don't have a high speed CW operator, don't worry. Just run FT8 or FT4. It's twice as fast. And you still get the 2 points for every contact. If you make phone contacts, sideband or AM or even FM, those are all worth 1 point. If you use 150 watts or less, you get a 2x multiplier. So all the points you've gathered, you can multiply by 2 if you only use 100 watts. If you want to use a kilowatt, well, people might hear you better, but you might make a lot more points if you don't. This year, special for 2023, they have changed how the GOTA stations work. So GOTA stands for Get on the Air Station. And so that's a station that you set up, you put a different call sign for that station. And it used to be limited to so many points. I think it was 100 points, was it? I think it was 500 total points that you could make on that station. Well, this year they have eliminated that point limit. So you can make as many contacts as you want on GOTA. So if you have a whole bunch of kids, put them to work. Keep that station 24 hours. They made it 100 points. Oh, an operator, but you had a total of 500. Yeah. 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 It had to be an unlicensed or an under licensed operator. Oh, okay. So Rick had mentioned that. Oh, yeah, thanks. uh, so Rick was just mentioning that in the past, if say an extra class operator, if they hadn't been on the air for the past year and they came to the site, they could actually operate the GOTA station. So a nuance. Good to know. I haven't actually read all the rules to know if that's still the case, but you can all go to the ARRL website and they have all the rules listed. So for anyone that hasn't participated in field day, we pass what's called an exchange. So it's an exchange of information. And for field day, it consists of 3 pieces: a number, a letter, and then section name. And so what are all these things? Well, I've got 6 Alpha Arizona listed up there as an exchange. The 6 is how many transmitters you have for your entire station setup. And that excludes the free VHF station and the GOTA station. So those 2 are extra. So you could have 6 plus those 2 and make all those points count together. Now, the class of station, there's lots of different classes. So most people go out as a group or a club and they'll set up using emergency power. So they'll use a battery or a generator and run the entire setup with that. If you do that, that's class A, and that's almost everybody. There are a few class B stations where it's 1 or 2 people that are operating portable. There are a handful of mobile stations. You'll hear somebody as a Charlie station class. The last couple of years, there's actually been quite a few home stations. So I don't know. Is it Diane? It's trying to. Yeah. Let's come on, turn on. Okay. So there. Let's turn this one off. Okay. All right. Switch mics. Does it sound better? Okay. Uh, so in the last couple of years with COVID and all, the ARRL has made some changes, some accommodations for people to use their home stations. It used to be that if you were operating Class D for a home station, you you could only make contacts with portable stations or stations that are out in the field. So a class A station or a class B or a mobile, somebody else. You couldn't make contacts with other home stations. And when COVID hit, they threw that out the window and said, well, if you want to operate from home, you can make contacts with other home stations. So deltas could contact deltas and have it count. The they Because of that, they also then said, well, echo stations, if they operate from home, but they operate from emergency power, um, it's kind of a halfway point between Class A and Class D. And then if you actually operate out of an emergency operations center, so like the county EOC or a city EOC or a state EOC, um, you can operate as Class F. Now, if your business or the place you work has an emergency operations center, that doesn't count. It has to actually be a um, a governmental emergency operations center to count as Class F. And then, of course, the last piece is the section. So, what part of the country are you located in, and or are you located in Canada? And so, for here in Arizona, Arizona is a section all by itself, and but that's not true everywhere. In fact, if we look at what some of the sections are, there's a lot of them for the ARRL. So many of them are individual states. You'll see, like in the call area 0, they're all states: Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska. Um, but if you look at, say, the call area number 2, which is only 2 states, New York and New Jersey, there's so many hams, they split it up into little pieces. So there's Eastern New York, there's Long Island, there's Northern New Jersey, Northern New York, Southern New Jersey, Western New York. Where's Southern New York? It's not listed. It doesn't exist. The same thing with California. If you go to the 6 land, uh, California is the only place you can get a 6 call. Well, of course, today you can get it wherever you live, but back in the day, to get a 6 call, you had to be in California. Well, that's a Hotel 6. And if you were in Alaska, it was Lima 6 with a K or a W or something, and the U.S. designation in the front. But that's all been thrown out the window. But there's lots of different abbreviations across California: East Bay, Los Angeles, Orange, San Francisco, San Joaquin Valley. Lots of different sections, Santa Barbara. Um, and so these are what people will be transmitting. They'll be saying, oh, that maybe their section is Rhode Island. So they'll say Romeo, India. Now, the Canadians, these are all their abbreviations. And so, Alberta and British Columbia, and well, almost everybody in Canada lives in the entire Ontario area because they have east, north, south. They even have Ontario Golden Horseshoe, which that must be the west because it's not listed. Is it? Brian says he thinks it might be down by the lake. It's the one thing that I found a little bit strange was I thought that years ago, the territories were not a single entity. So it appears that now they just list the 3 territories, Nunavut, Northern Territories, and Yukon, as the territories. So TER. I guess there's not that many people up there, although the folks in the Yukon in Whitehorse, it's about 25,000 people. It's probably the biggest city in the entire area up there. But other than that, pretty sparsely populated. So field day has tons and tons and tons of bonus points. Those free stations that um, you can get just by operating emergency power, you can get an extra 100 points. So if you operate 2 alpha, you get an additional 200 points. If you ran 10 alpha, you would get an extra 1,000 points just for having 10 stations set up. Now, I don't know if you actually have to operate all 10 of them, but if you have 10 radios and 10 antennas hooked up, you just got 1,000 points. So you can, if you just have the media come out, if a television reporter, a radio, AM, FM broadcast station reporter comes out, somebody that would publish a story on the internet, something to do with the media and publicity, you can get an extra 100 points. If you set up in a public location, so maybe a park or somewhere where there's lots of traffic, where the public has access, you can get an extra 100 points. If you send a message to Mr. Paquette, in our case, here in Arizona, he's our section manager, or sitting right here, Mr. Petrie, if you send him a message, he's our section emergency coordinator, you can get another 100 points. If you break out your satellite station and make satellite contacts at field day, you can get an extra 100 points beyond the contacts you make. If you are successful in copying the W1AW bulletin, which they broadcast on the East Coast at the actual W1AW station, or on the West Coast, K6KPH, he does it on the other side of the country. If you're successful in copying that message and you submit it with your log, you get an extra 100 points. And that's not all. There's a lot of others. If you do some sort of educational activity, if you teach, exactly, there's more, there's a lot more. And these are just the easy ones I picked off the top. If you do some kind of educational activity, you get an extra 100 points. If an elected official, so if the sheriff, if one of his compadres come out, if anyone that's an elected government official, if they come out and visit, you get an extra 100 points. If you have somebody, yeah, we could have Debbie come out. Yeah, Miss Let's Go. I'm sure she'll visit her husband's field day outing. If you have a visitation from a representative from any agency, so maybe you have a deputy come by and say hello, or you have the fire department stop in and check you out. You get, every time somebody comes that represents an agency, you get an extra 100 points. Yeah, you know, they didn't say anything about how they get there or why they're there. Oh, right through your area. Yeah, Brian was just relaying that one year they set up next to where the pathway for, or next to where firefighters were going out to fight the forest fire. And so they had lots of visitors that year. If you submit, so once you've finished this whole thing and you've collected all your contacts and you've added up all your bonus points, if you submit the log information with all these points through the web, they'll give you an additional 50 points for doing that rather than sending it in paper. If you have youth, so people under 18 years old, If you have kids come out and participate, you get an extra 20 points for each contact they make. I think it's the first one, not not all of them. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. If you have 5 kids and they make 10,000 contacts, you just won. Yeah. Okay. Oh, so Brian's relaying that there's some stipulations around getting the points and having a coach and so forth. So yeah. Oh yeah, for Goda. Okay. Yeah, there's lots and lots of rules too around how you get them, how you get these points. Um, if if you have some sort of social media activity where you've advertised or you've yeah, I guess basically advertised, Facebook or Twitter or whatever your favorite version is, you get some extra bonus points. If you just appoint someone as safety officer, so we're going to appoint Mr. Rick as safety officer so that he can tell everybody what to do. So it works for him, and we get an extra 100 points. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Clark. So the safety officer does not necessarily have to be a ham. They could be some unlicensed individual that watches out for everybody. Make sure make sure it's safe. That yeah, no, notorious for being dangerous. Oh, we can string that wire up, no problem. Yeah, exactly. Power lines. Oh boy. So, you know, we jest about a lot of things, but really field day is for bringing new folks into the hobby, and so it's all about the newbies, you know, new hams, recently licensed hams that maybe have stepped away from the activity for a while, bring them back into the fold, and especially folks that have never been licensed. You know, get them on the air and don't try to encourage them to come and make contacts and find out what it's all about. Get them on the air rather than, you know, somebody that's got an extra license and has 80,000 contacts and they're well on their way to having over 300 and whatever to get top of the DXCC list. So there's lots of things you can do. You know, they don't necessarily have to get on the air, but that would be great if they did. Um, Things, you know, to encourage them to get on and use the HF stuff, HF station. Um, you know, try to find those people that have never had HF experience, um, so they get a taste of it. You know, invite them to come in and sit down and operate the station, encourage them, help them to succeed, you know, coach them. If you're a operator that's been on the air a lot on HF and understands something about the bands and propagation and so forth and how to make the exchange go faster, you know, help them with that. Maybe sit by them and act as, maybe they act as logger and you teach them how to log, uh, to be a sidekick, so to speak, to help out. And hopefully they'll be encouraged to pick up the microphone themselves. And you know, one thing that seems to happen, you know, the youth that may be there, they may just come because they want to visit grandpa and they want to see what's going on. But if you can get them to get on the air, I can almost guarantee they're going to have a blast because everybody will want to talk to them. They have that very high pitched voice. Everybody recognizes it. They know it's kids. And so they want to make contact with them so that they have a good experience. Yeah, it's pile up central is right. People go nuts. So that's my last slide. But in any event, uh, does anybody have any questions? Oh, oh yeah. Clark said his comment is make sure to have fun. I know it's a lot of work to put these things together, but try to make sure not to forget that you're out there to have fun. You know, to come to get together with your friends, to set up equipment, to see what works and what doesn't work. Try things, and most importantly is if somebody doesn't get on the air very much, especially on HF, invite them to come and get on the air, or at least to sit with. Maybe they do the logging for you or something to get them involved. Are there any other? You're going to post what on Facebook? Did anybody else have any questions? Oh, just kids. They haven't mentioned that. That's because they're equal now. Do we have any questions online? I guess there's no questions online. Do we have any other questions in the room or comments? You don't have any comments, Bill?
Any question I'll ask one. Is there any local field day sites that are active in the valley, or is everybody going out of town this year? And you know of any that are local?
That's a good question, Joe. Let's
sometimes there's sites for those of us that haven't done it before.
Is the Red Cross is going to do it here in town? Oh, Dennis just said that the Arizona Amateur Radio Club, the folks that work with the Red Cross, that they're actually going to do it in the Red Cross building. So I guess they're going to set up and I don't know what antennas they're going to put up, but something to get on the air. Oh, maybe. So I guess they have some permanent antennas. So I guess they may be operating as a home station if they have permanent antennas.
Oh, okay.
But it's not a governmental agency EOC. So they can't operate as Class F. Maybe they operate as Class F and just fill it in and send it anyway. But oh, well, the Weather Service, that's NOAA, that's an agency, whereas Red Cross is not. They don't have any hams anymore. Oh, you're talking about NOAA. Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, there. Thanks. There was. Let's close this.
The person teaching the class tonight actually said she was a ham.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So they're teaching Skywarn tonight.
They taught Skywarn tonight.
Oh, they did.
Oh, actually, okay. Get you the name of the person because she said she was a ham.
Okay. So let's go to ARRL. Okay. Where is the link? Field day.
Yeah, but
they're going up north, right?
Yeah, where everybody got sick last year.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, it was like, what do they call that? Death something?
where they all got sick.
Yeah, really bad too, yeah.
Here we go. Locator.
Okay, bad potato salad or something.
Bummer. Okay. Well,
Nobody registered anyway.
yeah, it looks like nobody in the Phoenix area registered to stay in the oven. So, no, well, ARA does not formally participate in the field day event, but lots of clubs do. And so the Scottsdale Club, we're actually looking to participate with the 599 Explorer Post. And so they're going to be publishing where they're going. We can probably publish the same thing on the website. It'll be a different call sign. Thunderbird, I think, for the last few years has been going up to Flagstaff, right? And Superstition, I think they went. Did they go up by like Happy Jack, right? That's where they've been
Yeah.
going up in that area.
Yeah, near Clint's well.
And Marca, where do they normally go? Gentry Lookout Tower near Forest Lakes. Gentry Group Campgrounds. Okay. So who are some of these people here? Oh, so it's that's the guys at NXP, or what used to be Freescale, which used to be Motorola, W7MRF. Who's next to him up here? Oh, the Superstition Club right there. Look at that. Who's this? Oh, it's what is that? Verde Valley. Who else do we have up here? Maybe this is the Coconino guys. Oh, Thunderbird. They're listed up there at Flagstaff. Who's over here? Saguaro Knights. Some other club in Williams. The DX Club. Oh, so I guess the Northern Area DX Association in Flagstaff is also going to put up a station. Yeah, so there's at least a few people around the northern part of the state, and it looks like there's one down at Mount Lemon, down by Tucson. So the Tucson folks are going to drive up the mountain there and cool off. Nobody in the basin, though. Nobody in the valleys where it gets to 115. So, yeah. Yeah, it was super hot when the Scottsdale Club did it in the valley. Well, we've done it in the valley in the last 10 years, and it's super hot. But any other comments or questions, or no?
And should we tell people we're going to drop in, or can you just drop in on anybody?
So some of these, if one of these says, so this one doesn't say, it says they're not going to have GOTA. They have some contact information. Sometimes they list whether you can just drop in. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So Scott was just saying that if you list your field day activity on this website, then you're agreeing to accept anybody from the public that wants to come to your site. And that makes sense because this is a publicly open website. And so anybody that goes to find a field day site will find all these different places that they could go to. and at least see ham radio, and hopefully they invite you in to get on the radio and participate. But if you're not going to let the public come in and it's going to be a little private thing, don't list it on this website, I guess is the message. But we can zoom out and see. Maybe it doesn't show.
We're the only ones out. Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you just have to zoom in enough to actually see it. What I wanted to see was just how many different sites are available back east, especially in New Jersey and New York, because there's tons and tons of hams there. It looks like you could just throw a stone and you'll find one. But yeah, yeah. Illinois and Wisconsin. Let's see. Like the Chicago area. Yeah, Chicago's got a bunch too. Scattered about all the city parks, it looks like. Which is this one? W9AA.
Yeah,
Oh. Oh, okay. Bill says this is the group he used to belong to when he was back there in Illinois. Yeah, they kicked him out. N9EIV got kicked out of this group. Yeah, exiled to the furnace down in Phoenix. Yeah. So cool. Any other questions? Comments? Oh, there's probably a bunch. Yeah, we'll put you in charge of counting them all and see how many different ones there are. Oh, yeah. That's a good, let's check out and see if Wyoming, since how Wyoming only has what, 500,000 people in the whole state. They probably have one station. Well,
Every day, go towards to the west.
the West.
Yeah, I'm sure once we get up there in the mountains.
Oh, huh. Well,
Yeah, I would expect Jackson Hole. The rest of those guys are out busy counting cows.
huh. You're already in the, yeah. Yeah. Bummer. Well, out of 500,000 people, Wyoming is kind of tough to get for worked all states. So is Rhode Island, although Rhode Island seems to be more people on the air. But
Well, I know
yeah.
Stations in Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah, taking it forever. So Bill says there's at least two stations that are going to be operating in Vancouver, Washington. So yeah, and Washington is split in half. So Western Washington and Eastern Washington. So yeah, so they'll be up in Western Washington. Cool. Well, if there's no additional questions or comments, thank you very much for coming to the meeting tonight. And we look forward to seeing you all next month in June. Hopefully it's not too hot.